welcome everyone. My name is David, and I know it's very early in the morning, and therefore I like to present, or I'm sorry that I have to present a not very light and easily digestible topic, suicide. But I really think that suicide is the most interesting topic in the fields of psychiatry. I think that death and life cannot be understood apart. The more we know about the nature of suicide, the more we know about a meaningful life, actually. Once the German philosopher Nietzsche said that only one who considers suicide seriously can take life very seriously. So I think that, first of all, of course, we need to help these suicidal people, help them to prevent from committing or attempting suicide. But on the other hand, we can learn something from them. This is the structure of my PhD thesis. We are planning to finish 2 studies focusing on the risk factors or predictors of suicide behavior and self-harming behavior. These are 2 methods. And we are planning to finish one phenomenological and qualitative study focusing on the suicidal and self-harming experience itself. And we have a big quantitative study which is focusing the relation between sleep quality, menstruational phases, and the borderline personality symptoms. So my first topic is the investigation of risk factors for suicidal behaviors among patients with BPD. But what is BPD exactly? Borderline personality disorder is a very severe mental and potentially lethal condition. It's commonly said that these patients are stable in instability, which means that these people experiencing disturbances in their interpersonal relationships, in their identity, and they are hardly regulate their emotions or hardly control their impulses. Around 70% of these patients attempt suicide once in their lifetime, which is much more higher than in the normal population, and actually around 5 to 10% complete it. So our aim and our question is to explore what are these increasing predictors or risk factors which tends the person to attempt suicide or suicidal behavior. These are the details of my systematic research, and this is my flowchart selection. As you see, we ended up in very few articles, unfortunately. The reason behind that is that the different article used different statistical analysis, and they're also measured the variables in a different way. So we find only 7 articles feasible overall. Okay, these were the risk factors what we were examining, and the red ones is the predictors what we actually found feasible in this regards. Yes, so of course it was age, sex, depression, and impulsivity as a personal trait. In my first forest plot, which is the age, we found overall 3 articles. Unfortunately, these articles did not mention, and actually any of the articles haven't mentioned the the number of events or the total number of events. So the data, what we could extract from these articles is only the odds ratios. Odds ratio means that, so if the odds ratio is exactly 1, that means that the odds of an evening is the same in the two groups. As you see, the odds ratio in the age regard is 1.04, which means it does not have so high clinical significance. It is the same with gender or sex, where we only had 3 articles, and the overall odds ratio was 1.49, which means exactly here that if you are a female suffering with borderline personality disorder, that means that you have 1.5 times higher chance to attempt suicide. In the first plot, which is about depression, we had 4 articles together, and the overall odds ratio was 3.67, which means that this has a very high clinical significance, which is not very surprising, because borderline personality disorder can cause suicide alone, and depression can cause suicide alone. So of course, if you have depression and BPD as well, the chances are getting higher. In the case of impulsivity, we had also 3 articles together, and the overall odds ratio was 1.20, and this was the only one case where it was, even if it's not very significant clinically, but it was statistically significant. And this is the progress of my first project. We are writing the manuscript right now, and our absolute deadline is April 15th, and we are hoping to submit our paper at the end of May. Okay, about my second project, which is the investigation how the menstrual cycle phase and how sleep quality interfere with borderline personality symptoms. This is a very important topic, because actually more than 3/4 of the BPD population are premenopausal women, and menstruation is often associated with psychological symptoms such as affective instability, mood swings, or feeling upset, anxious, or irritable. So our question is, how does these symptoms interfere with the symptoms of BPD? According to our hypothesis, during the perimenstrual phase of the female cycle, all of the borderline symptoms are worsening. What about sleep quality? I think everyone experienced that after a bad night. During the daytime, they felt maybe very anxious, they felt tension, their mood was depressed, or experienced mood swings. And our question is, how does these psychological symptoms interfere with the symptoms of BPD? And according to our hypothesis, after a bad night, or if the sleep quality became slower, the following day, the BPD symptoms became more severe. And so, yeah, and how we like to measure this? There is a tool for every smartphone, an application, and we are planning to use 2 types of application. One application is a experimental sampling method apps, which means that the participants on a daily basis can fill out questionnaires in their own smartphone. And we want to use another application, which is a sleep quality assessment application. It's just when you're going to sleep, you put your phone into your bed, and that phone collects data of your sleep during the night, and we can gain...
Sorry, I'm very sorry, but we are running out of time.
Okay.
Okay, because
sorry.
We need this...
I thought I have 3 minutes left.
No, that's for the discussion.
That's for okay. I thought it's only for the...
Okay, any final sentences?
Any final
Just
sentences?
to close the lecture.
Okay, to be or not to be, that is the question.
That's great, thank you very much.
Sorry.
Okay. No, it's not a problem. Thank you very much.
Good morning, amazing presentation. I would like to ask about the study design that you were using in your first project. What is the phenomenology?
Phenomenology, yeah. Phenomenology is it's what I mentioned that we are planning to finish, and this is in my qualitative study. And I know that it sounds maybe strange because phenomenology is commonly used by cognitive scientists and philosophers, but I don't know, in a nutshell, phenomenology is focusing on the lived experience. How are the things given from a first-person perspective? So nothing what can observable or objectable. It's how do you feel, and that's the focus, something like that.
May I ask you, good morning. Thank you for the presentation. I would like to ask about the impulsivity. You had a slide on that, and how can you determine that impulsivity, or can you score this phenomenon?
Yeah, sure. There is, in psychiatry, we're using for that questionnaires, and there is very commonly used questionnaires in this field called the Barrett Impulsive Scale. And this is, I'm not sure about how many items in there, but there are questions focusing on impulsive behavior, and the patients fill it out for themselves, and we can quantify them.
So can we go back to your first forest plot?
Sure.
I mean, you keep talking about the difference between men and women, okay? And then in your second forest plot, that's about gender, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So in the first study out of the three, I mean, so you have a relatively small number of studies, which is fine. I mean, this is what you had. But in the first one, actually, there is no difference. So is there anything wrong with that study? I mean, no difference in gender. Why in the other two? Quite a bit. So, was there any difference in the selection of patients or subjects or what? So
yeah,
why is it that happens actually in your other studies too? That there are
yeah, I think I may understand your question. If not, correct me. But so in the first case, or no, I start with the second case. In the second case, when the variable was sex, the two groups was borderline patients who are male and borderline patients who are female. And in the first case, there was no difference between genders. There was focusing on age.
I'm asking only about the second one. In the second one, there is a heterogeneity in the results in the three studies. In the first study, I mean, it more or less shows that this is gender balanced, while in the other two, there are more women. Yes. I'm asking about the first study, out of the three.
So you're asking what is the reason, why is the odds ratio too low?
No, why is that, yeah, actually there is no difference between men and women. Yeah.
Yes.
Why in the other two there is. So you read all these papers, and then you see the heterogeneity. Is there any good reason why in this study actually there is no difference between men and women? Why there's quite a bit in
Because
others too?
actually borderline personality, so the population of these patients are commonly females, so there are much less male who are suffering borderline personality disorder. So there is a big difference between the number of populations when we are focusing on these variables in the case of males or females, because almost everyone is female. And therefore, we come up with the idea to focusing on how the menstruation affecting these patients.